industries, in fact, that have deployed this type of architecture. And whether it's in the hospitality space, the banking space, the healthcare space, this is a technology that is no longer a niche market like it was in the 1990s, but has now moved mainstream. And with major companies like Cisco and IBM and Citrix and VMware and Microsoft building technology and products around this, this has become a very, very successful segment of the market for companies who want to gain a competitive edge, and especially as we come out of this recession that we're in, want to be able to capitalize to be increasingly competitive. And of course, my message to all of you is if you haven't considered looking at this technology, you better hurry up because I'll bet your competitors have. Now let's talk about a couple of real customers and do a zoom in on some of the problems that these folks have. For instance, a company called Jewelry TV is like the CSN or the QVC of high-end jewelry, and they had support calls every day in their 300-person call center. When they moved to a virtualization environment, because that virtualization environment was well architected and so simple, they saved money implementing it, and they went from 1 support call per day to only 1 support call per year. That meant the help desk costs dropped dramatically, and the performance and the productivity of the people answering the phones and taking orders for jewelry went up quite a bit. So a big win for Jewelry TV. Amerisure Insurance is a company that really made the big investment right away. All 800 employees at Amerisure stopped using PCs and began using virtualization and thin clients all at once, and they have saved a tremendous amount of money. Typically, every 4 years, they'd write a check for $2 to $3 million to do their desktop refresh. But since they implemented their virtualization environment back in 2006, now would it be about the time that they would be deploying a refresh, and in fact, rather than writing that $3 million check, they were able to tear it up because the devices that they bought back in 2006 are still working perfectly today, and they'll probably use them for about another 4 years. So there's a huge capital expense savings there because they get to cut their desktop refresh cycles in half. The Reed group of companies is a personnel set of companies over in the UK, and in the UK, they take energy savings much more seriously than we do here in the United States, but I think that's going to change in the next couple of years. But the Reed group saved over 250,000 pounds in energy just by changing out their PCs for smaller, more efficient than client devices. 250,000 pounds is what? I guess almost $400,000 to you and I, and that's not chump change. Metro Health is a health company in Detroit, and they revolutionized the way that they delivered patient care and electronic medical records by using virtualization and thin computing technology to make every exam room a center for data where the physician can simply walk in, address the terminal, get the information on that patient in much greater detail than ever before, and deliver faster, better, more reliable diagnoses, and of course prevent things like prescription errors or the sorts of things that we hear about every now and then. So electronic medical records is a wonderful way of improving patient care for everyone. A major European bank has been working with Wyse and had moved to the virtualization model. And in fact, in the 5 years that they've worked with us, they report they've saved over $100 million in their IT by switching to this model. So it's a very, very powerful cost savings approach. And then lastly, the University of Arizona, a great university, obviously in the Arizona space, but can you imagine anything more difficult to secure and manage than a college full of students? Well, they had difficulties making sure their environment was secure and was able to pass audits, and it was only after they implemented a virtualization environment with Wyse devices were they able to pass all of the security audits that followed. So you can see that this is a technology that has security implications, cost implications, service level indications, energy implications, and in fact, the ability to do more with less. Now, before you really start to think about this, is that what we recommend is that you take a look at the kinds of users that you have in your environment, and so that you see my chart on the upper left-hand corner there. You'll have some task workers, you'll have some office workers, and you'll have some mobile workers. And what you really want to do is look to see whether you want to solve the problem for your whole company or just a department. And that's really based on your individual needs. But make sure you do a profile of the different types of workers. And then step 2 is take a look at the kinds of applications you'd like to deploy to those workers. Are you using Microsoft applications or Linux applications or web-based applications or Java or a combination of all those sorts of things. Make sure that you understand your application set. And then also understand your content set. Are you going to be delivering multimedia and Flash and Windows media and unified communications and voice, video, data, all of those things wrapped into one, or is it going to be a simple 2D business graphics? And then lastly, think about and understand the peripherals that you're going to use with the model. Do you want to use no peripherals and simply lock out the ability for your users to connect anything into your endpoint? Many security models recommend that as the best choice. Or do you want to go the other direction and enable users to plug in everything from their USB stick to their USB headset to maybe their iPhone? So all of these levels and everything in between is possible, but the decisions that you make around these 2 points will ultimately point you to the right combination of a virtualization environment for your server and an endpoint device for your users. So when we talk to customers, we take them through this process, as well as our partner CentriNet knows this process, to be able to find the right combination of components to deliver the best results. Now, when you consider putting the endpoint at the end of the wire, there's a lot of different options that you can consider. And when we talk about this concept of cloud clients that I introduced in the very first slide, cloud clients really breaks down into 3 different types of devices. The first type that I've mentioned a couple of times are thin clients. And thin clients are really a very flexible way to deliver maximum sort of functionality to your workers. And as you can see on the slide here in that top bar, these thin clients can take a lot of different shapes. A very tiny little device, I think that's what most people associate with a thin client. Or it can be a mobile device. It looks just like a traditional notebook computer, but it's actually a mobile thin client that doesn't store any data locally and connects to your virtualization server over either Wi-Fi or 3G or a wired network, whatever's the best. And there are high-performance thin clients, which are designed to support multiple displays. You can support up to 6 displays, or high-definition, 2560 by 1600 resolution across multiple screens. These are for those really high-powered applications that you thought you could never do in a virtualized environment. Well, the answer is you can do those things. And let's say you don't have the budget to replace your PCs with thin client devices early on. Ultimately, you know that's the right answer because that's how you're going to get all the benefits that I've talked about and some that I'll share with you in a moment. But let's say the budget just isn't there yet. Or you've only owned your PCs for 2 years when you decide to add a virtualization environment to your data center. There is software, Wyse sells it and others sell it, that lets you change that PC from a full Windows PC to essentially a thin client device. Now, you won't get all of the benefits of a thin client, but you will, using this kind of software, reduce the management and the security risks and deliver optimized performance for use with a VMware, Citrix, or Microsoft virtualization environment. And then lastly, and maybe one of my favorite models is the ability to turn an iPad or an iPhone or an Android slate or an Android phone into a thin client with a lot of cool functionality. And so we've shown at events like Microsoft TechEd and Citrix Synergy, and gosh, next week at VMware VMworld, we will be showing our Pocket Cloud software, which turns these devices into thin clients, and all of the amazing technologies and features that brings to really deliver an anytime, anywhere view of your virtualization environment. Imagine being able to take your phone out of your pocket, turning it on, pushing a few buttons, and you see your exact desktop environment that you see in the office because you just needed to send that one more email. You know who you are. Then the second type of devices are called zero clients. And there's a lot of discussion today about this new zero client model because a zero client simplifies the thin client by one step. Essentially, that step is removing the operating system from the thin client, and that step makes the economics of the thin, or in this case, the zero client, even better because it reduces the costs associated with securing the device, and it reduces the costs associated with managing the device. Without an operating system, there is less to manage. There's nothing to patch or maintain, and of course, viruses and malware have a much more difficult time having any sort of effect on the device. And so typically, zero clients are dedicated devices for a particular purpose. So you'll see devices built for Citrix, for Microsoft, and for VMware. And of course, we have those as well. And then lastly, there's something called cloud PCs. And cloud PCs are an alternative to traditional virtualization when what you really want is you want to keep your PC, you want your applications to execute there on the PC, but you'd really like all of your data and all of your applications and all your operating systems to be stored in the cloud. And you want to be able to maintain them and manage them much more simply. And so this is an alternative to traditional desktop virtualization. You have a cloud PC server, which is much smaller than a typical